I'm Joan Herman, and this is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Thanks for joining us today. Our guest today is Dr. Gay Hendricks. Gay is an internationally known expert in relationship transformation and body-mind therapy. He is the author of numerous best-selling books, including Conscious Loving, The Big Leap, and 5 Wishes. Gay is the founder of the Spiritual Cinema Circle, the Hendricks Institute, and the Foundation for Conscious Living. Gay, it is such a pleasure for me to have you here today. I have to tell you, in doing research for this interview and reading your books, I had a personal aha moment, which I am likening to your aha moment when your conversation with Ed, which we'll get into in a few moments. But I felt like you were writing to me. Everything in the books, particularly about the upper limit problem and inner thermostat, and we'll get to those terms as well. But that is really the story of my life, and I'd like to begin there if we can.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that because I really want the book to speak personally to everybody that reads it. That's one of the things that most excites me about it. It's kind of a person-to-person book.
And I walked into the studio this morning with both books in hand, and pretty much everyone I stopped along the way, I said, you have to read this, write this down, you have to get this book. And, and everyone's taking notes, so they're all going to go out and buy the book. But, seriously, it is exactly what I do on a daily basis. And someone pointed this out to me about a year ago. And he said, do you realize that you can never be happy? Every time something good happens to you, you literally pick a fight or you find something that brings you down. And personally, I've gone through a very difficult year of transformation. I lost my mother recently, my sole surviving parent, and a number of other things. And it's almost like as time goes on now and I allow myself to have some peace or joy, I'll start to replay all the bad things that happened this year, and I literally can bring myself to the point of tears. And I want to talk to you about that. And I think a lot of people do this. Why on earth do we do this?
Well, in the book, in The Big Leap, what I talk about how I discovered it in myself, because I woke up one day many years ago and I realized I was doing exactly what you're talking about, Joan. So I really appreciate you bringing it up as a personal issue that all of us have. Mm-hmm. And so what you do, first of all, is simply acknowledge that. Just kind of wake up to that insight and say, wow, there's a way in which I've been limiting myself through what I call the upper limit problem, mm-hmm. where you get to a certain level of feeling good or a certain level of feeling love in a relationship, or you get to a certain level of financial abundance, and then you sabotage yourself and knock yourself back down to where you were before. And the reasons are rooted usually in some early childhood fears that we have. For example, one of them that many people have is what I call the fear of outshining, that when they were kids, they were compared to maybe one of their other siblings, a brother or sister, and they got the message, don't outshine him or her, mm-hmm. and because it'll make them feel bad. And so you kind of turn down your light a little bit. In my particular case, I think I got that message a lot because of my older brother. It was important for some reason for me not to outshine him. I kept getting that message from my mother frequently. And I think that if you begin to realize these kinds of things, though, it begins to make you able to turn exactly the same circumstances of your life into a growth opportunity. Mm-hmm. And that excites me very much, is when you can find yourself in a moment of despair or not feeling good and suddenly transform that into a great leap forward in growth.
Now, Gay, let me ask you, because since I became aware of this, and I have to tell you, for the past few days, it's once you're conscious of it, you can pinpoint, and I literally see exactly what I'm doing. So when I have this moment, and I have this moment of consciousness, and I know what I'm doing, at that moment, what tangibly can I do to turn this into a moment of growth?
Here's 3 things you can do right in the moment. Breathe, move, love. What I mean by that is simply take a breath that kind of opens up some new territory in yourself, move your body a little bit differently, and love yourself for exactly what you're afraid of. Love yourself. The moment you love your fears, you transform them into the fuel for growth.
And then is that a way that we start to transform this inner thermostat that you talk about?
Yes. Every moment that you breathe, move, and love, you open up space in which you can feel good for longer and longer periods of time without messing it up. But here's the thing, Joan. Every powerful growth process begins with a moment of commitment. So what I recommend that everybody do right this moment is making a commitment, first of all, to extending the periods of time when you have good feelings inside yourself and when your life is going well, and make a commitment to extending those periods of time. Even if you don't know how at the moment, simply making a commitment is the key first step. And then everything seems to open up after that. But if you don't make a sincere commitment, then you don't really have any right to expect any kind of sincere change in your life.
Do you think that this is why some people are afraid to take chances in their lives, to follow their dreams?
Oh, I very much think so. I think many of us stay trapped behind a wall of fear and don't move through it. You know, there are other fears that we have, deep old fears that come from childhood, like many of us feel, a fear that we're somehow fundamentally flawed or fundamentally limited in some way. And it's totally not true. It's just that we happen to glom onto that belief at some stressful time in our lives. Like in my own case, for example, this morning I weighed a healthy 185, 186 pounds, something like that. There was a time in my life in my 20s when I weighed 320 pounds. In other words, I weighed, 135 pounds more than I weigh now. And so I found by finding that true sense of spirit inside, by loving that part of myself that I had previously been afraid of and had hated in myself, I was able to turn that all around, lose 100 and some pounds within a year. I even changed my eyesight so that I didn't need to wear glasses any longer. So I think all sorts of amazing practical miracles are possible when we begin to adjust our upper limit thermostat up and up and up so that we can handle more and more good things happening in our life.
And when you open yourself up to good and you love yourself, it just keeps coming then, and it becomes an abundance.
Absolutely. It becomes a whole new world in a way, because then your life becomes about opportunities to love yourself more, instead of opportunities to be afraid.
And this leads me now, you talk about zones. You have the zone of incompetence, the zone of competence, the zone of excellence, and the zone of genius. To me, it makes so much sense. Can you explain a little bit about each of these? And also tell us, which zone do you think most people spend their time in?
I think most people spend their time in their zone of competence. Sometimes people get into doing for short periods of time something they're terrible at or not skilled to do. Like if you have a flat tire on the highway, you change it even if you're a mechanical klutz. You do your best to change it, even though it's in your zone of incompetence. One of the reasons I call the book The Big Leap is because there are huge leaps that take place when you move from one zone to the other. Like, let's say you've been spending your time in the zone of competence, which is very safe. You're doing things that you're pretty good at. There are things that you can kind of almost do them in your sleep. You can do them well even though you're not thinking about them. But here's the thing. You only really begin to challenge yourself when you make your big leap into your zone of excellence, where you're really focusing on doing things that you're better than most people at, that you're really good at. However, the really biggest leap comes when you jump into your zone of genius. And there you are not just doing things that you're excellent at, you're doing things that you are uniquely suited to do. And you know what? They're usually things that you love to do, and you do them all day long, even if you weren't getting paid for them, just because you really love to do them. And that's the trick in life, is to find those things that have that quality to them. And how I recommend people do it is not to quit their job and run away to Tahiti or something, but to actually just take 10 more minutes a day to begin to focus on your zone of genius and finding out what it is, and taking 10 minutes a day to begin to map out how you can do more and more things that you love to do and be willing to be well paid for them at the same time.
So the zone of genius is where we would find our true joy and fulfillment.
Yes, it's what you're uniquely suited to do. There's a beautiful Yiddish saying that my grandmother said that at one time, that if you have work you love to do, you should ask for no other blessing in life. In other words, it's so rare to find somebody who's doing what they love to do and what is uniquely suited to do, that if you can find that, it's great if you have a happy marriage and a healthy body, but boy, you should ask for no other blessings, according to my grandmother, than to have work you love.
But it's true. Those are very wise words to live by. They make perfect sense.
Yeah, they really do. And, that's true of a lot of things our grandmothers say. You know?
They were much wiser than we.
Well, I'll tell you, I wouldn't be here without a very wise grandmother. She was an amazing human being. I really appreciate her every day of my life.
Maybe it was because things were much more simpler then, and they were able to get to the core of existence because of that.
Well, I think that's really true. Like when my mother was in school, which would have been, back in the 30s, early 30s perhaps, there was a study done about what were the biggest problems in schools. And the number one problem were kids running in the hallways and people chewing gum in classes. Well, now if you did a study about what are the most significant problems we have in schools, I doubt if chewing gum would be anywhere in the top 50, maybe, And so things have really gotten much, much more complex. But in a way, it becomes even more important in a complex world to go for the absolutely simplest things that make the biggest difference. Mm-hmm. Because most people don't have time to do 4 hours of therapy a day or something like that, you know. But what we can remember to do is catch ourselves when we're upper limiting ourselves, when we're sabotaging ourselves. Take a few breaths, love yourself for having done that, and then adjust your thermostat up a little bit and see if you can go 3 weeks next time without sabotaging yourself, and then the next time see if you can go 6 weeks, and so on. And it accumulates. Like my wife and I set a goal 20 years ago of having no blame or criticism in our relationship.
Wow.
And it took us a few years to get out of the habit of blaming and criticizing each other. But once we did, neither one of us have said a blameful word to the other one in 15 years probably. And there's been no criticism ever uttered in this house we live in. And so it's quite a wonderful thing to know that you can accomplish those kind of miracles in your life.
Gay, on that positive note, we are going to take a break for our sponsors. Stay with us. When we return, we are going to find out the one simple question that can make your dream come true. I'm Joan Herman, and this is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Judy Schumacher-Tilton, owner of Schumacher Chevrolet in Little Falls. We have been in business for 78 years and are part of the new GM. Please stop by and see our complete line of beautiful fuel-efficient vehicles. Our dealership has built a reputation on providing courteous, honest service. We are family-owned and operated. Come join the family. Call Schumacher Chevrolet at 973-256-1065. That's 973-256-1065. Or visit SchumacherChevy.com.
Some people prefer traditional funeral services. Others prefer cremation. Some want an elaborate ceremony. Others don't want any ceremony at all. Visit Funeral Homes offer all types of services because we know there are all types of people. That's why we specialize in personalized funeral services. To meet the needs of each and every family, call Bishop Quinlan Funeral Homes of Clifton at 973-546-2000 and Bishop Parker Funeral Home of Little Falls at 973-256-4700 for ideas and information on how to plan a service as individual as you are.
Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life now has a monthly free digital magazine that can be mailed to your inbox or read online at CYACYL.com. Each month, nationally recognized leaders in their fields, such as Joel Osteen, Shaun T., Tanya Brown, Ed and Deb Shapiro, Food Network's Robert Irvine, plus many others, provide the tools that you need to inspire and motivate you. We believe in a holistic approach to life, incorporating mind, body, and spirit. As philosopher Francis Bacon said, knowledge is power. Take the wisdom provided in the publication and apply it to your everyday life. Visit CYACYL.com for more information or to begin your free subscription. That's CYACYL.com.
If you're looking for delicious food with generous portions at affordable prices, check out Francesco's restaurant located at 568 McBride Avenue in Woodland Park, New Jersey. Francesco's has a beautiful banquet facility for private parties with packages designed for any taste or budget. Francesco's also offers off-premise catering. Francesco's is open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch and dinner. Call Frank at 973-925-1100. That's 973-925-1100 or visit francescoristorante.com.
Welcome back to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. This is Joan Herman, and our guest today is Dr. Gay Hendricks. Gay is an internationally known expert in relationship transformation and body-mind therapy. He is the author of numerous best-selling books, including Conscious Loving, The Big Leap, and 5 Wishes. Gay is the founder of the Spiritual Cinema Circle, the Hendricks Institute, and the Foundation for Conscious Living. Gay, a number of years ago, you had what I referred to in the beginning of this interview as an aha moment. You had an encounter with a gentleman by the name of Ed, and this person changed your life forever. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened on that day, and what was the question that Ed asked you that you say can help us make all of our dreams come true?
Yes, I was at a party, and this goes back about 30 years, a little over 30 years now, I guess. My wife and I are just starting our 32nd year of our relationship this month. We met yesterday, 31 years ago. So
congratulations.
We're on our 32nd year. And in the early stages of our relationship, I went to a party, and I was kind of wandering around. I'm not a big party person. And I was wandering around in the library of the house, just browsing in some books. And a fellow came in to the room, a tall, bald gentleman about 60 years of age. And he and I struck up a conversation based on the fact that neither one of us really liked small talk. And so Ed said, well, let's have some big talk then. And I said, sure, okay, what would you like to talk about? And he said, let me ask you a question. He said, if you were at the end of your life, looking back over your whole life, and if I came to visit you and I said, was your life a success? If you said yes, there would be one thing above all that you'd be referring to that made your life a success. And if you said no, there'd be one thing above all that you missed out on that made your life not a success. And he said, so if today were the end of your life, and I ask you that question, was your life a success? And I said, wow. Well, first of all, I tried to avoid the question. I made some little joke, like I said, can I get back to you later on that? And he said, nope, remember, this is the end of your life. And so I actually took it seriously, and I stood there and I tuned into that, and I said to him, you know, if this were my last day, I'd have to say my life were not a success because I didn't ever have a lasting love relationship with a woman with whom I could grow and change over the years. And I'd had relationships that lasted a year or 2 years or 6 months or something, but I never really had a relationship where I felt like I was all the way in the relationship. And
you never allowed yourself to that point.
I never allowed myself to until that moment. And I realized in that moment, oh, no wonder I haven't ever experienced that because I've never made a full heart and soul commitment to it. Mm-hmm. And so it was a very liberating conversation from that standpoint. So I said, okay, if I were to make one wish for my life, it is that I enjoy and thrive over a long period of time in a love relationship with a woman whom I can really grow with over the years. And I realized at that moment that that was my number one greatest wish. And I had others that I developed. The reason the book is called 5 Wishes is because I eventually put together 5 wishes for my life. And you may come up with 3 or 7 or 22. The number isn't important. I happened to come up with 5 really big ones. And then that became the focal point of my life. I began to be able to feed energy into those things to make them happen. And the first thing I did was say to Kathleen Hendricks, my wife now, also known as Katie, I said to her that I'd always been afraid of making a commitment because I was afraid that if I really made a commitment to somebody and it turned out to be the wrong one or that it turned out to be hurtful, that it would be much more hurt than I would feel if I just didn't kind of commit myself fully. And I hadn't realized it until that moment. And I said, I really want to commit myself fully to our relationship. Is that something you want too? And she said, yes. She said, that's what I want. And so here we are 31 years later. And, there's been lots of things we learned along the way, but I can see how everything began in that powerful moment.
Well, and if you think about it, if we imagine ourselves at the end of our life and we're lying on our deathbed and we allow ourselves to reevaluate everything we've done and what's lacking, that really should be the essence of our life. And I think it's wonderful and it's pure genius that you were able to, or that gentleman posed that question to you, because it did put you on your path. And I think it'll put us all on our paths if we allow ourselves to figure out what's missing and pretend for a moment that we are at the end of our life.
I think it's a really good practice to do, and I certainly benefited from it because it got my priorities straight.
Mm-hmm.
Once I figured out what those 5 wishes were, then I was able to put energy into those and not follow other things, and it makes it really nice because, if you set your goal to go from New York to San Francisco, let's say, on an airplane, you're kind of, let's say you set an automatic pilot and you set it toward San Francisco. Well, along the way, it's going to drift off the path literally hundreds or thousands of times. It'll drift a little to the right, and then the automatic pilot will catch itself and bring it back to center, and then it will drift to the left, and it'll bring it back to center. And so it gets all the way across the country by being wrong most of the time.
And if our listeners want to get more information about this, I recommend reading 5 Wishes by Gay Hendricks. And also, Gay, you have a website where people can go where you actually have a worksheet where they can develop their 5 wishes. Would you please give us that site?
Yes, it's 5wishesbook.com.
And as Gay is saying, it's an opportunity for you to pretend that you are at the end of your life, to evaluate your life and see what's missing, and to make those changes right now that will help put you on your life path. Gay, do you think that sometimes we have to experience great loss or be stripped of what we know or are comfortable with in order to be put on our life path?
I think so, because I think that human beings have to test themselves, I think, to grow oftentimes. Maybe it's not absolutely required, but I know that in my own life, sometimes in my life when it's felt like the bottom has dropped out of my life, when the bottom has dropped out and I haven't had any money, or in a big relationship breakup I had back during the 70s, it took me to the edge. I didn't know if I was going to be able to pull through it, but being able to go ahead and move through it taught me something that now I've actually had the experience of going back to those people and expressing my gratitude for the gift of whatever it was in their life, even though it was devastating at the time.
So everything's a gift.
Everything's a gift, yes. Well, it's also, too, one of the greatest quotes I've ever heard came from one of my mentors many years ago, a great psychiatrist, Fritz Perls. He said, "Fear is only excitement without the breath." In other words, the stuff that scares you, if you can open up and breathe with it and participate with it, turns into excitement. So that's a good thing to know.
And that's a great way to end the show. If our listeners would like to get information about Dr. Gay Hendricks, you can visit our website, CYACYL.com, which stands for Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. We will have all the links up so you can access the information and books and so forth about Dr. Hendricks. Also, while you're on our website, please read our free digital magazine, Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life 24/7. Listen to past shows at podcasts and sign up to join our email mailing list. Dr. Hendricks, it was a joy having you here. It was, as I said in the beginning, it was a very personal thing for me today. So I do thank you for being here, and I would look forward to having you back anytime.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Our guest today is Dr. Gay Hendricks. Gay is an internationally known expert in relationship transformation and body-mind therapy. He is the author of numerous best-selling books, including Conscious Loving, The Big Leap, and 5 Wishes. He's the founder of the Spiritual Cinema Circle, the Hendricks Institute, and the Foundation for Conscious Living. Thank you again, Dr. Hendricks. This is Joan Herman. This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Thanks for tuning in.